Okay, today we're making a list of watches that I love to talk about. These are luxury brands that sell for next to nothing on the secondary market. Now this could mean used or brand new on the secondary market, basically the gray market. However, doesn't matter how you're buying them, these are watches that literally sell for pennies on the dollar on the secondary market. Some of these brands are historic. I would say all of these brands make really high quality watches. They just don't sell well. So on the secondary market, they sell even better. So I'm going to get into it right away. I have a lot of brands to go through. I'm going to start with one of my favorite bargain brands. So let's start with number one. So I'm starting out with what could be the best bargain on this list. It is Eterna. Eterna has a very long history of watchmaking, and they have a lot of different stories to tell. In 1947, Norwegian explorer Thor Heyerdahl took a raft from South America to Polynesia in order to prove that it was South Americans first traveled across the Pacific Ocean to Polynesia. So he was basically trying to prove that it was South Americans that inhabited the Polynesian islands, and he wanted to prove that. He did that journey with an Eterna on his wrist. And that was a very, very long journey, and he did that on a handmade wood raft that he made himself. Eterna was also the brand that started ETA movements. Obviously, they no longer own ETA. It is owned by the Swatch Group, but they did start the brand ETA. That's pretty cool. That's a big claim to fame, in my opinion. And also, many militaries have used Eterna watches. The Israeli Special Forces used Eternas. Actually, they used Kontikis, which is also pretty cool. I personally own 3 Eternas in my collection. All 3 of them I paid next to nothing for, and they all have in-house movements. They're really good looking watches. I have 2 GMTs from them. Both of them are in-house GMTs. One is a Royal Kontiki, my favorite in my collection, and I think it looks fantastic for the price that I paid, $600. That's for an in-house Swiss-made integrated bracelet watch with 100 meters of water resistance, a display case back, a DLC coating. There really is no bigger bargain out there than Eterna on the secondary market. The next watch brand on this list is Kador. If you're not familiar with Kador, they are owned by Seiko. They currently are in operation and they make watches today. Their watches are very, very high end. However, Kador from their very inception were meant to be quintessential Japanese watches. They were meant to be very high quality and they focused on ultra thin movements. They also highly focused in on precious metals, something that Seiko really doesn't do, and also Grand Seiko. This was meant to be where precious metals lived for Seiko. Up until recently, most Americans didn't know what a Kador was. Outside of Japan, they never really were that popular. They are gaining some momentum outside of Japan now. However, they still aren't really well known, and their name isn't a household name like Seiko is. And you can get some really high quality watches like the Pacifica, which is a watch that I owned. It had one of the best bracelets that I have ever seen on any watch. It also had a mechanical automatic movement inside, and it was a chronograph with a power reserve. Just a really cool watch, a very different looking watch for a very good price. I paid around $1,200 for that watch. And Seiko, Grand Seiko, it doesn't matter. You cannot get a watch like that from Grand Seiko, Seiko at that price point. And that's because Kador don't sell for a lot of money on the secondary market, especially here in the United States. The next brand on this list is a brand that I have brought up many times on my channel. I actually made a dedicated video on why I think they are a really good bargain on the secondary market. I'm talking about Ebel. Ebel was founded in 1911 by Eugene and Alice Levy. It's a fashion-forward brand. However, they highly focus on movements and quality. They use precious metals. However, they use a lot of their own in-house movements. They've also used El Primero movements for their chronographs. A lot of their watches are very high quality. And again, you could buy these watches for next to nothing on the secondary market. They have a very distinctive design, so you have to like that design. However, if you do, you could definitely pick one up for a very good price. Very similar to Ebel, the next brand on this list is yet another brand that's really well made. Very famous brand as well. They have a very, very rich history. It's Concord. They were founded in 1908 in Biel, Switzerland. Concord was one of the first luxury watch brands to use precious metals and gems in their watches. However, during World War II, during peace talks during World War II, President Harry Truman actually gifted Concord watches to Winston Churchill and Joseph Stalin. Talk about history. The Delarum, which is one of my favorite watches that they make, period. It's an ultra thin quartz watch. It is less than a millimeter thick. These are really cool watches that no one ever talks about. Even though they're a quartz movement, it is a tank watch. They're made out of precious metals and they sell for literally next to nothing. I think the last one that sold on eBay, this is a gold watch that is an ultra thin, under 1 millimeter thick. I think it sold for around $3,000. I kicked myself because I missed that. I really would have wanted to buy that watch. Hopefully more come onto eBay soon. I would love to own this watch. I think it's really cool, especially considering that they are so cheap on the secondary market. Most of the watches that we're talking about here on this list today are modern watches, maybe neo-vintage watches is what you would describe them as. I do have a vintage watch that I want to talk about on this list, and is a vintage Tissot Omega. Now, there is a connection between Tissot and Omega that isn't the Swatch Group. They actually merged a long time ago in 1930, and there are co-branded watches out there. A lot of them are chronographs that are co-branded between Tissot and Omega, and they are pretty good bargains. Considering that they are co-branded between the two brands, I think they are way undervalued. And it's just a cool watch that has a Tissot name on it, has the Omega name on it. I think it's just really cool, and they sell for what usually is very little amounts of money. Also, there are a lot of Tissot in general that are very high quality, using Le Mans movements that you can get for well under $1,000. Chronographs that are really good looking, usually movements like the Le Mans movement that they use. I think it's the 5100 if I remember correctly. Those watches featuring that movement sell for a lot more money, well over $1,000. But if you want it in a Tissot, you can get it for under $1,000. Again, a bargain on the secondary market. The next watch brand on this list is probably dollar for dollar one of the best bargains in the secondary market for a haute horology brand. I'm talking about l.u.c. Chopard. Chopard are really great watches. They use ETA-based movements. They also use in-house movements as well. However, l.u.c. is their higher end watch. They compete with the likes of Patek Philippe and Vacheron, higher end brands like Breguet. These are high-end watches and they are really good looking as well, really well made. One of the most popular calibers that they've ever made was the Chopard caliber 1.96. It was originally created by Parmigiani. It was a collaboration between Chopard and Parmigiani. Now, Parmigiani are a very high-end brand. It was actually Philippe Dufour who said that this is one of the best finished movements that he saw back then when they were in high use. They're still being used today because they are amazing movements, and you can get them in watches costing around $2,000. These are watches that originally would cost around $16,000, but if you look on eBay, there are plenty of micro-rotor movements, because this is a micro-rotor watch that is based on this movement, that you can get for around $2,000 to $5,000, depending on who's selling it and the condition of the watch. Usually used watches go for less. These are extreme bargains, and they are true haute horology. Some of the best bargains out there on the secondary market. Next is a brand that I am extremely well versed in. It is IWC. I actually own 2 perpetual calendars from IWC. I also own a Porsche Design IWC. So I do put my money where my mouth is when it comes to this brand. Those perpetual calendars come in at a fraction of their original MSRP, and they are very highly complicated watches that get a lot of details. I'll give you an example. I have a GST. The GST was a watch that came out as an integrated bracelet watch. It was coming out in gold, steel, and titanium. That's the GST. Not the best name, I agree. However, these are based on a l.u.c 7750. You're getting a perpetual calendar and a chronograph. You're also getting a moon phase with an aventurine disc with a solid gold 18 karat rose gold moon. These are very, very well made watches. Of course, they are from IWC. You're also getting 120 meters of water resistance or 150 meters of water resistance, depending on the watch. You're getting a lot for your money with these. In full titanium, I paid under $6,000 for my GST. That's in titanium with a perpetual calendar and a chronograph and that moon phase. True perpetual calendar. Yes, this is a Kurt Klaus perpetual calendar, so you do have to be careful. You can't go forward because everything is controlled from that crown. But with that being said, there is no brand out there that you can buy on the secondary market, except for maybe Ebel, who also offer a perpetual calendar that is a bargain like IWC. The next watch on this list is from a very high-end watchmaker, Martin Brawn. If you're not familiar with Martin Brawn, he's a very important watchmaker who's made some really amazing complications, moon phases that were extremely accurate. He also created an equation of time that was extremely beautiful and very affordable on the secondary market. I have seen them sell for under $3,000. I'll throw up pictures of these watches. They're so cool, and the fact that they sell for next to nothing is incredible. This brand is defunct. I believe there is someone that is selling these on a website that looks like it's Martin Brawn's website, but I don't believe he's actually still in business. He owns another brand that is extremely high-end, selling watches for $100,000. These are still available on places like eBay, and you can get them mostly used because all the new ones are gone, but at a very, very good price. Next is another brand that, again, I put my money where my mouth is, Roger Duwe. I know a lot of people sort of snicker at Roger Duwe. There is a few facts about the brand that are very important. Number one, Roger Duwe himself was a master watchmaker. He worked at Patek Philippe. He worked in the high complication section. He actually ran the high complication section for Patek Philippe. He started his own brand, and he wanted to make something that was a little bit more avant-garde than Patek Philippe was. All of the watches get a seal of Geneva. They are very, very high-end, very well made, and usually in precious metals. Some of their watches are absolutely gorgeous, and some of them aren't. However, I would say that Roger Duwe, when it comes to haute horology, high-end watchmaking, they make some incredible watches for very, very good prices. And again, on the secondary market, they sell for next to nothing. So you can get a precious metal watch for around $6,000 or $7,000 made by someone who worked at Patek Philippe and has put the same quality into his watches. The seal of Geneva is very hard to get, and they were actually applied to not only the movement in his watches, but the case as well. So the case was finished to the utmost highest standards, which is pretty cool. And again, these don't sell very well on the secondary market, and I think a lot of them are starting to gain traction with collectors. Next is a watch that maybe isn't the biggest bargain as compared to all the other watches that we've talked about on this list, but I'm talking about Zenith. Zenith, obviously still in operation today, selling tons of watches. So there are tons of watches on eBay that feature the El Primero movement. There are triple calendars and time only. However, I'm going to focus in on the El Primeros for this video. There are plenty of El Primeros on places like eBay that sell for a very good price. And the reason why they sell for such a good price is because there are a lot of watches out there. They are still producing El Primeros, and these watches are just sitting on places like eBay selling for really good prices. So if you ever want an El Primero, you're probably best going to the secondary market before you're looking at the primary market. Unless it's something you absolutely have to have and it's extremely limited, I would never buy an El Primero directly from Zenith. Next brand on this list is a brand that I really love, and I have yet to own one, and I will own one of these one day. It is VERLIN. VERLIN is a new brand, so this is not a historic brand like the other brands that I have mentioned in this video. However, their watch design, the design of their watches, heavily inspired by the Royal Oak. But what they wanted to do was something completely different. And they did that. Their watches were fitted with computers. So they had a ski computer and a diving computer. They were large computers that fit over the face of the watch, and they were actually used by people to go skiing or diving, things like that. With the advent of smartphones and smartwatches, these became obsolete. However, the watches were heavily influenced by that design, the need to have these computers attached, and they didn't change the designs. These are really funky looking watches. Some people might think they're ugly. I don't, but they do sell for a very good price on the secondary market. They're still in business, but a lot of their watches sell for, $8,000, $10,000, $20,000. You can get them for around $3,000 on places like eBay. Some of them do have in-house movements. However, most of their lower end models feature a Sellita or an ETA movement, and that's the reason why they sell for such a low amount of money on places like eBay. But there's one thing to keep in mind, their bracelets. They have one of the best integrated bracelets that I have ever seen on any watch. They look like an armadillo. They're really solid links. It's just a very interesting conversation starter, and I love the way that these watches look. It's something completely different, and that's why I put it on the list. They do sell for a very good price on the secondary market. Okay, so we're coming to the end of this video, and I want to mention two more brands. One is MINAS. MINAS is a Japanese brand. They make some really funky, weird watches. They've been moving in a direction that looks a little bit more normal recently. However, they've made watches that are called 5 windows. So there's 5 separate sapphire crystals on these watches, so you can see the movement, you can see the side of the movement, and of course the crystal on the top. These have really interesting dials, weird date wheels that are semi-exposed, and of course they sell for very little on the secondary market. However, with that being said, they are consistently raising their prices. They are pretty limited, and they do use ETA movements. So they do use Swiss movements, not Japanese movements, even though the watches aren't made in Japan. I'm not sure if that turns off some people. I'm not sure why it would. I think these are very interesting, weird looking watches that some might find very attractive and some might not. However, they do sell for a very good price on the secondary market. Last but not least is a watch brand that I really love and I really want to own one day. I've constantly looked at them on eBay over and over and over again. There is one specific one that I really want. It's a chronograph with a moon phase, and I'll throw a picture of that watch up. Kind of looks like an FP Journe a little bit. They are extremely affordable on the secondary market. They're Paul Pico. They were started in 1976 by an Italian entrepreneur who wanted to start a high-end watch brand, and that's what he did. This is haute horology. These are pretty high-end watches. They use a lot of Frédéric Piget movements, which, if you don't know, is the movement manufacturer owned by the Swatch Group. It's a higher-end movement manufacturer that is used in Blancpain and JACA. So these are actually high-end watches, but they sell for next to nothing on the secondary market. I really love these watches, and one day I do intend to own one, specifically the one that I just showed you, but they do make some really amazing world timers with grand flue enamel dials that look phenomenal. They're really not all that expensive. However, they are pretty rare, and when they hit eBay, they basically sell immediately, and they usually sell for a very good price. That's really it. That's my list. There is one other brand that I was going to mention here, and I actually just mentioned it in the last watch that I was talking about. That is JACA. JACA make very high-end watches. They have a very long history. Obviously, that history was dropped for a little while because they were out of business during the quartz crisis, and then the Swatch Group revived them. And they are famous for their automation. So they've done a lot of this in the past. A lot of their large clocks that had a lot of automations in them, so little figures that actually moved. And they still do that today. They have watches with little birds in them that chirp. Those watches are very expensive. However, they're standard watches. They're sports watches. They sell for next to nothing on the secondary market. Again, watches that cost around $20,000 end up selling for around $4,000. Yes, that seems still very expensive, but you are getting a very high-end watch from JACA. They are using, again, Frédéric Piget movements, which are very high-end, used in Blancpain and other high-end watches. And considering all of that and considering what you're paying for them on the secondary market, I really do think they're a bargain. So guys, tell me what you think about the list that I put together today. I know there are other watches out there that are bargains on the secondary market. I tried to keep it between $500 and $10,000, that price range of watches on the secondary market. And I think I did a pretty good job here. Tell me what you guys think down in the comments below. These are all watches and watch brands that I would consider to be pretty high-end, and in some cases I would consider them to be very high-end watch manufacturers. Again, tell me what you guys think down in the comments below. Please also don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon, all of that good stuff. It is very helpful for the channel and I very much appreciate it. And that's really it, guys. Thank you for logging on. Thank you for watching this video. I will catch you guys in the next video.